Hello, everyone, and welcome in to JW World News Sunday edition, right here on the Six Screens Telenetwork. My name's Rick Ferrin, and I'm up here in the hub of the universe, right up here in Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm so glad that you're joining us today. Wow, what great programs we had the last couple of hours. We had Cheese Pendleton coming in from California, and he did a great program. Then we had Scott Walton. He was on earlier. And he has a program, Knowing God After Leaving the Watchtower. And boy, he talked about some things very fascinating. Then we just had our program about spiritual journey after leaving the Watchtower. So now we're here with JW World News, and I'm glad you're here with us. And we do have some things to talk about. And I have to say that we're getting so much news coming across the internet. And people are sending me news from all over the world about the Jehovah's Witnesses, and thank you for doing that. But, I want to say this. There are many Jehovah's Witnesses, PIMIs. Well, you know what a PIMI is, right? You know the acronym, PIMI. That's PIMI. Well, what's a PIMI? A PIMI is one who is physically in and mentally in the Watchtower. In other words, they're loyal Jehovah's Witnesses. They're following the Jehovah's Witness teachings to a T for the most part. But, many PIMIs, they're starting to notice the falling numbers in meetings and conventions and assemblies, that the people just aren't showing up like they used to, lots of empty seats. And I got some information yesterday that was given to me, and the information was from a young man that he's a PIMO. He's physically in, mentally out. He doesn't believe the witnesses, but he gave me information I found fascinating. He said that he took his father to the Jehovah's Witness meeting the other night, and the circuit overseer was there. Now, when the circuit overseer is at your congregation, that's when everybody would come to the meeting, right? Even people that didn't come that often. When the circuit overseer came, man, they were there. So anyways, this young man, took his father to the meeting, and there was only 40 people there for the circuit overseer's visit. Normally, before COVID, he said there was 150 people that would be there for the circuit overseer's visit. It's not like it used to be, his father said, that things are changing. As a matter of fact, the father whispered into the young man's ear as he was looking around the hall, and he was talking about all the empty seats. So even the PIMIs, even the full-fledged Jehovah's Witnesses are seeing that, man, something's not right here. What's going on? So the young man was telling me he felt sad for his father. He says, honestly, he was sad. His father was looking around the hall and seeing people not coming there as they used to. And he said that his father gave up his whole worldly family for this organization and all the job opportunities that he could have had. But being a Jehovah's Witness, he was stopped from really doing the things that would have made his life way more enjoyable. And you stop and think about it as well. A lot of you people that were in the Watchtower for a long time, like even myself, how many relatives did we not really totally acquaint ourselves with because they weren't Jehovah's Witnesses? I know, and I feel bad about that today. Not that I ever was rude or anything to them, but if they weren't a witness relative, the Watchtower told me not to be around people like that. How else would you take it? So, this poor man who went to the meeting, seeing all the empty seats, his whole worldly family is now behind him. They don't really associate with him because he doesn't want to associate with them. He lost job opportunities. So I have to tell you right now, friends, look out on the horizon. You take a look. Right now, the rate of decline in the Jehovah's Witness religion is unbelievable. People are leaving, the old saying, in droves. They are leaving big time. Do you know what's destroying them? It's the internet. The internet is the great equalizer, as we always say. Now, back in the 1960s, did any of you folks go back there with me? I know I'm getting a little older here, but I'm sure there's going to be some people listening in that can go back to the 1960s or the 70s or even the 80s. It was a completely different atmosphere at the Jehovah's Witness meetings. There seemed to be a purpose in everything. And then all of a sudden, changes started coming in. And in my little history with the Watchtower, I know when these changes started taking place. I wrote them down here. So I believe things started changing in 1972. Well, you say, well, what happened in 1972? Well, that was the elder arrangement started in 1972. They talked about it in 71, kind of said it was coming, but they initiated it in 1972. And that created for the Watchtower organization a culture, a new culture. And it really does. I mean, think about it. There was something new in the witness world. And I believe that elder culture is what started the rot in the Watchtower. I believe that's when the organization really started to get rotten because of the elders. So I look at 1972 as a pivotal year. And then I also look at 1975. Oh my goodness. The 1975 fiasco. That did a lot of damage. Remember 1975? Armageddon was supposed to come. They told us a year or so in advance, a couple of years in advance, that the time period for Armageddon is going to come in the fall of 1975. And witnesses totally believed that many were selling their houses, pioneering, and getting ready for 1975. It never came. So that was a big disappointment for many. Do you know how many people left the Watchtower after 1975 and the next year afterwards, say 1976 in that area? 250,000 Jehovah's Witnesses left the organization because of the damage of 1975. Now, okay, so we get 1972, elder arrangement. We got 1975, the Armageddon fiasco. Now we're moving up. And another thing that I really begin to hone in here on is the Watchtower desperately changing the generation teaching. I mean, you can really see it. It was very obvious. They started it really in the 80s. They started seeing that, man, time is running out. We did tell people that, the generation that was now living would not die before the end. And all of these anointed ones in the organization, older ones, were checking out. They were dying. So what did the Watchtower do? They kept moving the goalpost further and further. So they try to buy more time. So they kept changing the generation. Do you know how many times I've caught the Watchtower changing that generation in my history with the Watchtower? 16 times. 16 times. Yeah, they keep changing it. As a matter of fact, they change it just a few times. I'm not going to get explaining it to you. I'm not going to do that because you can't make sense out of nonsense. I have a hard time explaining nonsense. I can explain facts pretty good. I can study them and take notes, but I can't explain the generation. I mean, I got an idea what they're saying, but it still doesn't make sense to me. All right, so by really playing around with that generation doctrine, what did it do to the Watchtower? It took away their sense of urgency. So a lot of people left the Watchtower because it took away their sense of urgency. They're saying, what's the Watchtower doing? We don't really know when Armageddon's coming now. So, I mean, that's why a lot of people have left. So it was up until the late 1990s, the Jehovah's Witness religion was growing big time. Congregations were splitting. Remember that? They used to merge congregations together, consolidating them, amalgamating them, whatever term you want to use. More and more congregations were being formed. Also, many families were coming in. The Watchtower in the 90s was actively involved in building projects. refurbishing Kingdom Halls and building new ones. But in 2000, things started slowing down. They started slowing down. Now, I don't know if it was because of the turn of the millennium. I'm not sure, but I do, as I went back on the trail and started to pick some crumbs up, I noticed that in the year 2000 and onward, things started turning in a bad way for the Watchtower. And I can specifically remember in around the year 2013, the cart work was now introduced. This was a new way to witness to people. And witnesses now could take a little cart, fill it up with literature, and hit the street with it and hope they could talk to people and direct them to jw.org. Things are starting to change. And by 2014, the overlapping generation nonsense, well, was getting very stagnant, very stagnant. But also in the year 2014, we began to notice the term here, my wife always coins it as Disney-esque. You say, well, what is Disney-esque? Well, she and I have discussed, as well as many people on the six screens, the Watchtower had this Disney-like way about it. You remember the cart song? I love my cart. Remember that song? Well, that's like a Disney song. And all of a sudden, the Watchtower started connecting with these really emotional songs. They changed the songbook. They came out with all new songs. And just on this Disney-esque thought, too. Well, there was a man that was a high official with Walt Disney Studios, and he was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's how the stuff. Now, I can't, give you total clarification, but that's the story I heard, and why they started getting this Disney-like way about them. And then understand something: the Watchtower today is a lot different than the Watchtower yesteryear. Now, I'm just going to split it into two groups here so you can quickly identify what I'm talking about. Today, the Watchtower is connecting people through emotionalism. They're connecting people through nice emotional songs that get them all riled up and stirs their emotions and connects them to the Watchtower and to Jehovah. Now, it's emotional connection today. Now, back in the 60s and 70s, it was more of a reading the Bible, more of a biblical structure. You were learning substance. We weren't really connected on emotionalism. We were connected on substantive information. Well, that all is gone. And then let's move up to 2020. Wow, things are really heating up in the Watchtower. We have Bethelites being booted out of Watchtower. Well, they didn't need them anymore. They're laying them off, so to speak. They did not need them. And of course, by now, the district overseers were gone. No more district overseers. And now what the Watchtower started doing is, rather than building new Kingdom Halls, they started amalgamating the halls together so they could sell the ones off. In other words, you get two Kingdom Halls, one Kingdom Hall in this town. The next town over, you have another one. Sell the Kingdom Hall in the other town. Bring the people in that town over to this Kingdom Hall in the other town. And then you can sell that one off. So they started doing that. So that really was what was going on. And the decline has been getting bigger ever since. But let me tell you something. What do you think caused the biggest downturn perhaps ever in the history of the Jehovah's Witnesses? And only time will tell. But I believe there's millions, at least hundreds of thousands that are leaving right now. They really are. I really have the confidence and the understanding that there's so many Jehovah's Witnesses leaving, and you folks know it as well. And what do you think caused this? It's COVID. COVID. Yes. This has really accelerated a downturn in the Watchtower. Yes. That so many people were so used to staying home. They didn't have to get in a car and get in a cold car or a hot car and drive to the meeting. They could just stay home on Zoom. They could even turn the cameras off and go about their business. And they got a little bit of relaxation. They got a little bit of freedom that they never had. So when 2 years later, 2023, when the witnesses, actually it would be 2022, when the witnesses wanted to go back, when the Watchtower wanted the witnesses to come back to the meetings and get off COVID, get off Zoom. Nobody wanted to do it. So COVID really is the great cult killer, in my estimation. And not only that, they didn't have to go out and field service either. They could just write letters and send them off in the mail and didn't have to go down and pound on doors all over the neighborhood. So this really created a moment of relaxation for the Jehovah's Witnesses. And goodness, they didn't want to go back after all of that, those moments of freedom and relaxation. And now what we have here in the year 2023, that's where we are now. Elders are barely in their 20s. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong here. There's still plenty of older elders, but now they're picking elders that are barely in their 20s. And the ministerial servants, they look like high school kids, seriously. And also we notice that the pioneers, to be a pioneer today, you only have to do 50 hours. Now, I don't want to sound like an old dinosaur here, an old codger, but back in the 60s, you know how many hours you had to get in to be a pioneer? I believe it was 120. 120 back in the 60s. So that's like double the amount that you have to get back then as you do today. Today you can pioneer getting 50 hours a month, 50 hours a month. And then to auxiliary pioneer, well, back in the old days, friends, to be an auxiliary pioneer, you had to get 50 hours in. 50 hours was equal one of this being a pioneer today. But to be an auxiliary pioneer today, just a little meager 15 hours a month will do it. And I see what they're doing here. I see this is a Watchtower trick. I can tell you right now, 15 hours, that's not a lot, but still when you're going out in service, it seems like a lot, right? But it's not really a lot. So the Watchtower is going to use this as a crutch. They're going to use this as a way to get more people to auxiliary pioneer, and especially the elders. The elders got enough responsibilities. They're trying to, keep their family afloat, keep a roof over their head. And so now you're going to go to the elders. This is the Watchtower is going to go to the elders. This is my way of thinking only, friends. But they're going to say to the elders, look, you're getting 10 hours a month in as it is. Why don't you just come up a little bit, get 15 and be an example for the congregation? You can be an auxiliary pioneer. I know they're going to pull that game. And what are some of the other things I noticed? Well, just was actually, I think 4 weeks ago today, we were out in the Sanger Center in Massachusetts at the convention. The regional convention, we had our 6 Screens protest team out there. And I noticed all the security guards for the Watchtower, they had those land yards, like necklaces with a little badge on them. So they're all standing out in front of the doors. Every door that was going into the stadium had an elder there. There was, I believe, 8 of them. And they're watching everybody like a hawk, seeing if they have their badge on. I never witnessed that before. That's changing. The Watchtower's paranoid. They're paranoid. They're afraid that one of us protesters was going to go in there, but we wouldn't. But I'm sure that's what they were afraid of. We also see meetings via video today. And that never took place years ago. So things have changed. But the bottom line is this: people are tired. Jehovah's Witnesses are bored. They're desperate. And it truly sums up the spirit of the organization at the moment. Tired, bored, and desperate. That's the Jehovah's Witness organization. The organization, friends, is in some sort of crisis. Perhaps Tony tried to warn them, but they kicked him out instead. I got thinking of that as I was putting this together. Could that be one of the reasons Tony Morris was kicked out of the organization, or not a governing body member anymore? But I'll tell you, COVID, it was really COVID that has really been the final blow, at least in my understanding. And the organization cannot survive as they continue to put more and more burden and more people having to change their lifestyle. I don't think they're going to get people to do it like they used to. So, anyways, you're on with us. Go ahead. Is that Michael? Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, Rick, you mentioned COVID. I mean, to me, the Watchtower, they totally dropped it on that one. If the Watchtower had fought the lockdown, they could now pump their chest and say that they were right and that they knew because they have divine, insight. But they went right along with what the government said. I remember I talked to an elder. Oh, this might have been 6 months ago, but I told they stopped at the house. I said, well, I brought up the COVID thing. He didn't like what I had to say, but I said, I can remember, I told him, I said, well, I remember going to the convention. You're supposed to risk your life to get to the meeting. We people went through crocodile infested waters, crossed a war zone to get to the Kingdom Hall. And now you're not going to go because of some flu virus that 99% of people survived. But I think they just totally dropped the ball on it. I mean, they could have, it made me think of Judge Rutherford. Judge Rutherford, there ain't no way he would have used this. He would have used this to get some publicity. It says, and fought this tooth and nail.
Yeah.
The way I see it.
Well, no, I agree with you. Yes.
But so I just feel like, I don't know if I want to say they're cowards, but I just told this brother, I said, the Watchtower Society, they did everything the government said. Sit at home, wear a mask, social distance, and take the shot. But I'm told this is Satan's world, and they said to do what Satan's world tells you to do. I don't understand that. And they just, I don't know. They said, well, the virus is real, blah, 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 blah. But regardless if it was or not, like I said, it says you obey God as ruler rather than men. I don't know how many times you hear that line, don't forsake the gathering. COVID changed all that.
Oh, yeah. No, it did, Mike. It did. It really did. So it's a different ball game. But, I mean, I was just trying to show some of the changes that I've came across.
Right.
It's different. It's way different.
Right. But with religion, too, you have to understand. Well, I mean, I know I'm not telling you something you don't know, but all religions are facing the same issues. I think I don't know. I've always had a fascination with Mormonism. Mormonism is hemorrhaging, and COVID hurt them too. They shut down their meetings and everything, just like the Watchtower did. The churches that tried to fight against it probably are actually doing better, honestly. I was listening to that one preacher in California, John MacArthur. He was listening to a podcast. He was on there a while back. Yeah, he fought against the lockdown, but he said at first he went along with it, but after a while he figured out, wait a minute, this isn't about the vaccine, or I mean the virus. This whole lockdown thing, this is just about controlling people. That's the whole damn thing was about. People go along with it. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what they do. That's what they do, Mike. Well, what do you think? In fact, we get some rumbling going on in the background. Is that? Did you want to come in? Is that Chewy? Come on in, Chewy.
Oh, just a brief comment. I just drove by my wife. She didn't go to the meeting today, but I drove by my wife's hall today in the Spanish. I had 17 cars out on Sunday. 17 cars on a Sunday, and this was the week after the CO visit. They're supposed to be pumped up, and they've had an all-time low the next week of 17 cars. Anyway, that's about all I got. It just keeps getting funnier and funnier as we go on.
Well, it does. It is getting funnier and funnier as we go along. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Chewy, for giving us that little update. Always good to hear. A lot less cars in the Kingdom Hall parking lot.
Hey, did you last night? I didn't get it. Do you have a copy of that? You said you had a copy of that latest video.
Yeah, I'll send it out to you, Chewy. Yeah, I copied it.
I want that. I'm trying to get that.
They took them down. Even the copy I got is missing. Yeah, so I'm glad I got it. Yeah.
Oh yeah! Wow. Even the copy you got is missing, huh?
Yeah, they don't want that. They don't want that up there. What Chewy is talking about here is they did an elders training video, and the elders were sitting there for the circuit overseer he was training him basically. And what it was these elders were discussing the fact that one of the elders' children, two daughters of his, were going to college. And they did not like the idea that the elder was letting his children do that. They were 18 years old. And so they were all over his case because he was supporting their college arrangements. So they actually, I'll tell you what they did, they deleted him as an elder. So they took that down. That is, it's hard to even get. But if anyone wants that elder training video, write me at JW World News and I'll send you a copy. jwworldnews@gmail.com.
That is a very good video. That's a guy that had it up. I don't know. He was a PMO. I know that. He was a PMO, and I've got some other videos of his with some snippets from it. And he is very good. I mean, that is very good information for people that are just waking up. You wouldn't want to use that at a cart or something like that. I don't think so. But if you've got a PIMQ that is starting to wake up, that is gold.
Oh, it's golden. And let me tell you what I noticed last night when I played the video clip. It was a 7-minute clip, but I wanted to play it all. But I'll tell you what I noticed. We had 229 people watching live on our network here, watching JW World News when that was playing, and not one of them left. They wanted to hear that. No one was even typing or chatting or anything. They were listening to that video. That got their attention, really.
That and the comments that I've seen from the channel, and I agree with it. I mean, I put a comment on there, but the word that I saw was creepy. That's the word I want to use with it. That is creepy. That is a creepy video. That I have the same feeling I have watching that video, and as when Dad and I used to watch 5 minutes of Billy Graham before we turned the commercial off. You know, it was creepy.
Oh no, that's a good way to explain it, because I'm thinking here's an elder. His two daughters want to go to school to get better jobs in life. I mean, these other elders are talking to him like his two daughters want to become pole dancers. Geez, they just want to get an education. Right. It was terrible, right. Yeah.
And I know Anne Marie is listening. I know she's probably still listening. But this video, if she hasn't seen it, I know she probably seen it yesterday. But it's very reminiscent of the elders training video that her and I talked about years ago, and we both seen it. And I still got an email on it. It's still up. A sister whose husband passed away, and the elders were coming over there and consoling her. And instead of calling the professional help, they just assumed that they cured it all.
Yeah.
The lady said that she was wanting to commit suicide, and they showed her Matthew 6:33, and it was all good. It was creepy, like that kind of creepy.
Oh yeah, no, I got you. Well, thank you, Chewy. Thank you for checking in with us. I always appreciate listening to Chewy. Thank you. Did Milwaukee, Wisconsin want to come in? Milwaukee, Wisconsin, you're on with us if you'd like to speak up.
Hey, Rick.
Hi.
It's Rochelle again.
Hi, Rochelle.
Milwaukee.
Hi, Rochelle. Yeah, good to see you. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, I was going to say, where I live here in Milwaukee, the witnesses really haven't missed a beat. Like, COVID hasn't stopped them from going to the Kingdom Hall. I mean, they were just talking about, it's just been, I haven't known of too many witnesses that stopped going after COVID. Maybe there has been, I just don't know of any specifically in my area. There is one lady she stopped going before COVID. So she just stopped going, and she had been raised as a witness. Her dad was an elder. I think the contradictions just got to her, and she just stopped going.
Now, do you live near any Kingdom Halls that you go by? Do you ever go by when there's a meeting? Is there a lot of cars in the lot?
Yeah, I live 5 minutes away from the Kingdom Hall I grew up in. I live 5 minutes away from it, and yeah, there's still a lot of traffic. Around here, they haven't missed a beat for the most part.
Yeah, well, my wife Susan here, she's from Milwaukee. She probably even knows that congregation. Yeah. She probably even knows the congregation. There's probably a number of congregations in Milwaukee. It's a big place, yeah.
Yeah, I went to grew up in Glendale, the Glendale congregation, and then my parents, they go to McGovern. I don't know if she knows about those. Glendale doesn't exist anymore, and then McGovern is still a congregation.
Still a congregation. Well, you've got a good.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, Rochelle, you got a really nice, clear voice on here. Did anyone ever tell you have a nice voice?
Oh no, they haven't. Thank you.
Well, it's nice and clear. Do you sing?
I do sing.
Yeah.
I actually do have a nice voice. Good singing voice.
No, I can tell. You have a very pleasant voice. You really do. And we're glad that you're part of the Six Screens. We really enjoy you calling in, Rochelle. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, yes, thank you.
All righty. Well, good to hear from Rochelle, right? We love to hear from Rochelle. Now, we've got, did you hear this? And then we're going to cut to the Christian court that's coming up next. This Kingdom Hall in Arkansas is now a cigar lounge. I thought, I don't have time to show you the pictures. I showed you last night. But it's a cigar lounge that the premium cigars at great prices, all the accessories you need, high-end knives, beard oils. Oh, geez, the witnesses, they don't like beards, but here they're selling beard oils in an old Kingdom Hall as well as cigars. But I mean, the craziest thing that you'd want to see, and I had a man write me, he was watching the Six Screens last night. He says, Rick, that story you did on a Kingdom Hall becoming cigars, he says, I was really bothered by that. He says, here they sold the Kingdom Hall off to cigar companies selling cigars. He told me that, when he was a younger person, when he became a Jehovah's Witness, he had a 14-karat gold cross. He was a Christian. He had a gold cross. And he said that, when he became one of Jehovah's Witnesses, they made him either bury it or throw it out. But he wanted to sell it and get some money for it. They said, no, you can't sell it. Can't sell it. No, you got to either throw it in the garbage or you got to bury it. So he buried it, he said. I think he said he forgot where he buried it. But the point he was making is, how can they take a Kingdom Hall and apply a different strategy? Now, if we get rid of the hall, they shouldn't have sold it like he was saying, like they told me not to sell my gold cross, and they sold it to a cigar lounge. That is unbelievable. Chewy, we'll give you the last word. Go ahead.
Well, I got a story since you're talking about that. There was, I had lunch, I had breakfast with an elder. He's not an elder, he's like us, he's one of us. He's faded out. Anyway, and he told me when they sold the hall, I wasn't here yet. When they sold the hall, your story brought this up. When they sold the hall on the other side of town, not the one that I went to, they sold it to a church. That's common practice for them. Well, this brother, who was an elder at the time, had a construction company. So once the sale was final, the new ownership, approached him about doing an extension on the church, another room on the church. And you know what the body of elders said? They said no. Now here they can sell a church to false religion, but you can't. To the same organization, you can't go and you can't build a room for the extension of the church.
Well, that's what I always say. How do you make sense out of nonsense? Thank you for sharing that, Chewy, and thank you for coming on the Six Screens today. Thank you. All right. Well, looks like we got to end it here. Our Six Screen Sunday edition of JW World News coming to an end. Folks, thank you for listening in. But I have to tell you, the last one, leaving the Watchtower, please turn off the new light. We'll see you in the Christian court. That's coming up next, right here on the Six Screens Telenetwork. End the broadcast.